Hey, Brian Davis Races. We're here at Tough Udder on the farm. This is gonna be a fun race. Course looks awesome. I'm gonna go get warmed up. Got my buddy fishing, gummy bear fishing. Yeah, good times. Oh, what's cracking? It's Brian Davis Races. Thanks for tuning into the channel today. I am off to racing at a farm in Dousman, Wisconsin. This is a notoriously tough course, but it's actually the first time that I was able to get down here and race. And I had a co-pilot today, so excited. My son Isaac came with me. Super pumped about that. Left daughter and wife at home, but got out for a race. This is a couple weeks ago. The weather was warmer than it looks. Later in the race, right at the end of our race, and it started to snow. I think that was at the end of our race, or yeah, it started to snow, which was the first snow of the season, and it's like October 15th or whatever it was. So that's early for snow. So anyway, I got off to my start here, and you know, my goal today was not really anything spectacular, just go out and get a race in. In the end, it ended up being kind of an interesting day. I guess in a really negative way, I completely am destroyed in this race. So there's the leaders. They all go by me. I'm in the Masters 1, 2, 3 category for 35 plus. And the Pro 1, 2, 3 category took off right ahead of us. So they're up the course a ways, and they will catch me later in the race. But I'm only going to go ahead and show you the first lap because there's really not much else for me to show you. Okay, as far as racing itself, there's a few takeaways from this adventure I had. Number one, I really enjoyed my time with my son Isaac at a bike race. That was great. I sent him up to fish for cyclists with gummy bears, and let me just take a second here and encourage all of us people that are out racing to try to interact with folks that are out there cheering for you. So especially if you see a kid trying to hand you something, I don't know, maybe on your second or third lap when you have some time to focus or you have some space between a competitor, grab the thing they're giving you, talk to them, joke at them, smile at them, do something to keep them engaged. It's really a lot of fun for them. So in any event, our fishing contraption was terribly designed and we have major changes to make, but okay, as far as racing goes, this twisty bits here, it's a bumpy course for sure. They did roll the course because they got some feedback in the past years that it was a little too hard on people's hands, and it definitely was hard on your hands by the time the race was over, but you know what? It's cyclocross. That's just kind of how it goes. So maybe I'd feel differently if it wasn't rolled, but they did everything they could. It's a really cool event. It's held, I think, on a private farm. I think this farm actually teaches people about farming in Wisconsin, and they had some animals and things like that, so it's really cool. Place to be, and I really like the mission. A lot of space in the race, and certainly all those patties are mud, right? I mean, like, yeah, it's definitely mud. So for the first lap, man, I was really struggling with turning and things like that. I did not get a very good warm-up. I was trying to set my son up and get organized in other ways, so that's okay. That's just how life goes. So looking at this whole race, I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the positive I can take away from this. So I had, you know, basically a gigantic failure in terms of how the race went. Now, some positive takeaways. I looked at the power numbers after the race, and they actually had pretty decent numbers for where I'm at this time of the year. And then there's things I just need to remind myself of. Like, I didn't quit in the race. That's good. And this is not my number one focus for the year, cyclocross. I love it, but it's not my number one thing that I look forward to racing. Yeah, so that's it, you know. I just want to go out and race. Now, driving 2 hours to get to a race, racing for 40 minutes and getting your butt kicked, that part is less fun, but so be it. All right, so that's the first half of the course. It's just a gigantic field we go back and forth on. Now we get into some fun parts here. There was definitely some moisture on the course the last few days, so it was slippery. My tires in warm-up were way too high. I came back and knocked them way down, and that helped a lot. And I think even at the end of the race, my tires had lost some air, and then they felt much grippier than they did in the beginning. Boy, that turn right there took me all race to finally figure out how to do it, and that was not the right way to do it, just FYI. All right, so let's think of some other things, right? So I can't sit and wallow and be upset with myself and drown my frustrations in M&Ms. I need to figure out something to do or something to take away from this race, and I'd encourage you to do that for yourself too. If you have a bad race, which we all do, to find some takeaways that you can build positives on. So a big thing for me is, boy, that barrier was at a tough spot, and I tripped on it in practice and fell right on my face. Did not get that on video. So a big thing for me was to give myself permission that it's okay, just like I described. This is not my #1 thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and give myself permission to not be completely frustrated with that process. That's just part of the process. You go out and race, you have fun, and you should look forward to racing just because it's fun to get out and race and compete and push yourself, and it adds so much purpose to training. How I place, you know, it's important, but it's not the end of the world. It's not why I race, and I'm sure that's the siren call of anyone who gets their butt kicked, but that's what I'm going with this week. So, yeah. All right. So, you know, I have other things like we all do. We have other things in life that kind of bump up in priority, and at the moment, job and family things had definitely been bumping up in priority the last couple weeks. So I did not have much time to train. I was trying to get out and do some runs, which I had a video on the other day or a couple weeks ago, so you can check that out. But, you know, what can a cyclist get out of running? It's tough. I spent the whole off-season running one year and thought, I'm really putting in a lot of work. I'm gonna have a good race. No, never had a good race. So, yeah, I think that's the last person that passes me. There is a cool section coming up here. We'll just tune into the race for a second. This was kind of, this big giant mud pit to get across was really fun. I made it. I didn't biff it. There was definitely some carnage in the parking lot of people. You could tell who biffed it and people who didn't. So this was a tough spot to get through right here. I had to put a foot down later in the race, but that was about it. So overall, I made it. Like I said, fun course. They had all the elements. You know, good climb, lots of wind. They take you back through the trees here. They had a log barrier. They had a regular barrier. They had well-organized event. They had beer somewhere. I never found it. I wasn't looking for it. After I got beat, I wanted to not be drinking beer and try to take care of my body a little better than I have been. So, like I said, we're only doing one lap, and we're about 3/4 of the way through this lap. Later in the race, I figured out a lot better how to turn. But by then, I was just kind of off in my own world and just having a bike ride. So that happens. So I'm going to use this loss as fuel to do something, do some positive changes, right? So this is a couple weeks ago, so I can absolutely tell you in the week after this, I don't think I had a single beer, which is great. And I definitely lost a little bit of weight because I was minding my food. I started getting back into my green smoothies in the morning instead of regular breakfast. I have found that dairy is not my favorite thing, I guess, or doesn't do well with my body. So I used to eat cereal all the time, and I backed off on drinking milk, and that seems to have really affected things. So now I have a green smoothie in the morning, and that works out much better, more consistently. I've always had them here and there, but definitely more consistent with that. And back to the basics of drinking water first thing in the morning, and, you know, just focusing on the things you need to do to put the work in. We had some flooding in our basement, so my pain cave is not set up, but I got the contractors coming over to fix the original leaking basement problem, and we're going to get a new floor installed. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that I'll use this negativity to some positives going into December, January for 2019 road season. So I think the point of this video is you're going to get beat, you're going to get your butt kicked, that's just going to happen, but how you react to it is something that you can control. So can you lose right? Can you lose right? That's what I was focused on, and where I got that lesson, by the way, was from my son, because after the race I was pretty upset. I said, how are we going to make this into anything anybody would ever watch? And this concept that he came up with was finding a good way to lose was his. And that's him. There he is fishing. And I got the worm. All right, good stuff. That's what racing should be about. Having fun, family, seeing your friends, riding a bike, getting some exercise, all that stuff. So winning is cool too. Don't get me wrong. All right, till next time.
It is cold. Well, that race did not go very well for me, but it's a very cyclocross kind of day. I'd intended on doing 2 races, but I am deciding to do 1 race for a couple reasons. 1, it's miserable out, let's be honest. 2, I was talking to Isaac, and I said, how are we going to make this a good story? I got dead last. And Isaac's idea for a lesson in all of this day was how to lose well, essentially. So that's what I'm going to focus on, how to take this total butt kicking and internalize it into positive changes. So whether that's less beer, eating healthier, more workouts, whatever the case is, it's yet to be determined. But instead of whining and complaining, the only thing you can do is something about it. So that's what we're going to work on.
Here's the lesson from yesterday. I got my butt kicked badly. So what am I going to do about it? I'm going to get out the next day and train a little bit more. I'm going to eat a little bit less, and I'm going to try to stay focused on what my goals are. My goals are not to be fat and out of shape. My goals are to compete better. So that's what I'm going to focus on. Competing better. Let's get after it.